Hey, what up, guys? Coming to you this morning, going to continue the 2019 year-end top 10s. This video, we're discussing numbers 4, 5, and 6 in the 147-pound welterweight division. This is my number one division in boxing. This video is going to focus on 3 of the best fighters in the world, 3 fighters you're all going to know, and that everybody really enjoys to see fight, you know. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to take my time. This is going to be probably a lengthy video here because it's just 3 guys that we have to give some time to. So let's kick it off with number 6, and that is former 2-division world champion Danny Garcia. Danny entered 2019 coming off with 2018, where he impressively knocked out Brandon Rios in the 9th round of their fight, which was a competitive fight up to that point. And then he got a title shot for the vacant WBC title. He took on Sean Porter. It was a really good fight, and it went exactly the way I called it. I called a close decision win for Porter, and that's what happened. But Danny fought hard. I thought if Porter overwhelmed him, that Danny wasn't going to be able to handle the pressure, and Danny fought his ass off in that one. He really impressed me, but he dropped a very close 12-round unanimous decision. So how was he going to bounce back from that? Well, in 2019, he returned in April to take on Adrian Granados, game contender, and he kicked the shit out of Granados. I was so impressed by Danny's performance. This is probably his best performance since he knocked out Amir Khan and Eric Morales back in like 2012 in terms of just overall domination, finishing with a knockout. It was a great win, a 7th round TKO, but it didn't lead to anything else. Danny didn't end up fighting the rest of the year. He was being talked about for Errol Spence and other guys, but nothing ever came to play. So disappointing, he remained out of action. So now entering 2020, you know, what kind of year is Danny looking at? He's looking at a big year potentially. In terms of his stats, he's 31, so he's still in the prime of his career. He's been banging around for a long time. He started when he was young. He's 30-3 with 1 draw and 17 knockouts, and he's currently the WBC's #1 contender. He was supposed to fight Errol Spence early in the year, but Spence, after that car accident, is going to be out until probably about June, May or June. That fight's still on the table, but Danny is deciding to stay busy. So on January 25th on Showtime, he's returning to take on Ivan Redkach, game contender right there. Danny should handle him, though. I think he's going to knock Redkach out middle to later rounds and push forward towards what is one of 2 options. He's either going to cash in on his mandatory and take on Errol Spence in May or June, or he's going to get the Pacquiao fight for the WBA title. So I absolutely believe he's going to get one of those 2 guys. I know he wants the Pacquiao fight, of course, but Errol Spence would be a big one, and I think Danny absolutely believes he can compete and beat Errol Spence, and it's going to be interesting to see what goes down. Danny's been in there with some of the top guys now. He's been in there with 2 of the top 5 fighters, and he's lost close decisions to both of them, to Keith Thurman and to Sean Porter. So he's going to get his opportunity in 2020, and we're going to see if Danny is going to step up and beat one of the premier fighters in the division, or if he's going to lose another close one, or finally get his ass whipped by one of these guys. We'll see. But Danny is very good, very capable, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him next against either Pacquiao or Spence. I think that's a great test for him, great challenge, and I really hope he brings the fight and puts on a display. So we'll see what happens there. Next up, finishing the year, number 5 is another well-known fighter, the now former 2-time welterweight champion, Sean Porter. Sean Porter entered the year at number 3. He drops a couple spots to number 5. He entered the year as a WBC champion. He went into he was coming off of 2018 where he captured the WBC title, the vacant belt, with probably his career best win, a hard-fought but deserving 12-round unanimous decision over Danny Garcia. And so he entered the year as a world champion. Now, he had a mandatory defense due, though, and that was against Yordenis Ugas. And he actually struggled against Ugas in March. The 2 went at it. Ugas, very tricky style, very awkward style. It really threw Sean Porter off, but Porter did the best he could. It was a good, hard-fought battle, and it ended with a split decision win for Porter as he retained his WBC title, but controversially. So next, he got a huge fight in what I believe is the biggest fight of his career. He stepped in and attempted to unify titles against Errol Spence Jr., and ended up being a really, really good fight between these two guys. I thought he was going to get his ass whipped. I really did. I thought Errol Spence was going to handle Sean Porter. And Sean Porter showed why he is one of the top fighters at 147 and one of the best fighters today. I really would put him on a pound-for-pound list too, because he's just overall good, and he can compete with anybody. And he always goes down with a fight if he does get beat. And he fought his ass off. The fight ended with a split decision win for Spence, as Spence took the WBC title from Porter. But Porter, again, like I said, he fought his ass off. He really showed a lot of heart and showed that he's still at the top of his game. So entering 2020 now, he's 32. He's 32, so he's still right there. And actually, I'm sorry, guys, Danny Garcia's stats were 35-2, 21 knockouts. Porter's the one who's 30-3 with 17 knockouts. Porter is actually right there at the top of the food chain at 147 right now. He's been banging around for a while, and he's right there to get right back in the mix for a title shot. So we're going to see if he gets it. He's taking on, he's actually in the mix for Manny Pacquiao. That's what keeps getting heard. I think the Floyd Mayweather aspect here is what's throwing off whether Porter gets Pacquiao in the ring or not. Because, and Errol Spence, what's going on with him. So let me break that down real quick. Mayweather could be in play for a rematch with Manny Pacquiao. That's what we're hearing. So that's why Pacquiao's kind of stalling to see how serious that rematch talk is. He's looking into that. Now, it looks like Danny Garcia is probably going to go to face Errol Spence, leaving Porter to challenge Pacquiao most likely. But it's really up to Pacquiao. Pacquiao is calling shots here at 147. And if Pacquiao decides he wants to face Garcia instead, then Sean Porter's probably in line for Errol Spence next, because Sean Porter's at the very top of the WBC rankings too. So it's really going to depend on what happens with Mayweather and Pacquiao's decision after that. And, we're going to see what unfolds, but Sean Porter should get something big in 2020, whether it's the first fight of the year or the second. If he does not land that big-name opponent first, I think Porter needs to focus on taking on one of the guys in the back, like Josecito Lopez, Thomas Delorme right there. Lipinets is taken, but I think one of those two fights would be good just to stay busy, stay sharp. He'd be the favorite going in, and he could push forward in the second half of the year. He's going to land somebody. He's going to face, I think he'd be in line for Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, one of those guys. And then the other big option that's being talked about for Porter is to go over to ESPN to face off against Terrence Crawford. There's real talk about this fight happening. I didn't mention it first, though, because Crawford shot it down. Crawford said he doesn't need that fight, but I think he does. I think Bob Aaron's going to talk to Crawford, and I think Sean Porter would do it. But I think Porter's waiting to see what's going to happen in the Pacquiao universe, because that's a bigger fight for him. So we'll see what goes down. I hope Porter gets something big. He deserves it. He's proven he's at the top of his game. He shouldn't be avoided anymore because he is a big name. He brings money to the table, and he deserves a big fight. So hopefully he lands it in 2020 and gets right back in the mix of things and goes for another world title. And then finishing up this video and finishing the year number 4, entering 2020 at number 4, is the former unified welterweight champion, Keith one-time Thurman. Thurman entered the year not even ranked because he didn't fight at all in 2018. But he scheduled his next fight, and he got back in the rankings in January, as he was still the WBA super champion, and he would take on Josecito Lopez. He knocked Lopez down early, but then he left Lopez in the fight, and Lopez jumped on him, and Thurman almost got knocked out in the 4th round, or in the 7th round. I'm sorry, he got really hurt in that round and almost got knocked out. But he held on, and he went to the scorecards in a hard fought battle, and he ended up walking away with a close majority decision. But Thurman hadn't fought in almost 2 years, so people gave him a pass. I did. I give him a pass saying, hey, it's been almost 2 years. And then Lopez is shown by beating John Molina that he's still game. He can still compete. So that being said, that led to Thurman's biggest fight of his career in July when he defended his title against Manny Pacquiao. This was a huge fight. A lot of people thought it could go either way. I personally picked Pacquiao to win a close decision, and that's exactly what happened. Pacquiao knocked Thurman down in the first half of the fight and really won most of the first half of the fight. Second half was close, good rounds. You probably could give the edge to Thurman in terms of who did the better work in the second half of the fight. But Pacquiao overall, I thought he won the fight, and I didn't think it was close enough to be scored a split decision, but they did, and Pacquiao walked away the welterweight champion. Now Thurman said he was done with 2019 after the Pacquiao fight in July, and has said that he had to have another surgery, so he's probably not going to come back until the middle of 2020. So I think he's going to have a 2-fight year. I think he'll fight like maybe in June, hopefully May at the earliest, but June, and then probably fight again at the end of the year, which is perfectly fine. Because as long as he fights twice, I want to see Thurman in the ring. But Thurman pulled the Danny Garcia excuse. If you remember in that fight when Thurman beat Garcia, Danny said a lot of people didn't feel it was close enough to be scored a split decision. And Danny, that was Danny's excuse to getting a rematch, saying that he thought he won, which he didn't. He didn't win that fight. Danny, I didn't even think that fight was close. Same thing with Pacquiao. I mean, I thought Pacquiao won 8 rounds to 4. You could have given him 9 rounds. I didn't think he dominated. Some of the rounds were close, but Pacquiao was did the better work, and he outworked Thurman. So I didn't think it was close enough to be scored a split decision, and Thurman was using that excuse for a rematch. He's not going to get a rematch, at least not this year. So what does Thurman need to do in 2020? He just needs to get back in the mix. He needs to fight a legitimate welterweight in his first fight back. So again, I'll mention the names at the back of the top 10, like Thomas Delorme and Josecito Lopez, right at the back of the top 10 right there. If you can get Adrian Broner to come out of retirement and fight him and whip his ass, that would work. The PBC, Andre Berto would work. The PBC has a lot of guys that have names that aren't on Thurman's level, that he could come back, get his feet wet, and then push forward to something big in the second half of the year. And then he's just going to have to see what's left over based on what the big names are doing. Errol Spence can fight anybody. We don't know who he's leaning towards. It could be Danny Garcia next. It could be Sean Porter in a rematch. We don't know until the fights actually happen. But I don't think Thurman's going to want to test himself against a top 5, top 6 guy right out the gate. I think he's going to go after top 10, top 15, and then push towards a bigger fight in the second half of the year, towards the end of the year. And it really is wide open. He could face Errol Spence. If Errol Spence is still there, shit, he could throw himself in the mix for Terrence Crawford if the PBC and Top Rank are really working well together. So Thurman, though, he's got a name. He can get some fights, but he still has to dance around Pacquiao and what Pacquiao's doing. And now Errol Spence and not necessarily Crawford, but this could be Crawford's year where he really makes a splash fighting the PBC fighters. So we'll see what happens. But Thurman, he's going to have to test himself and get back in the ring. He's still somewhat young. He's only 31 years old. Still in his prime. How much does he have left, though, after all the injuries and all the time off? He's 29-1 with 22 knockouts. So he's still very good. And we just got to see what he decides to do. But like I said, I'm a big fan of Keith Thurman. And I want to see him back in the ring. I want to see him get a Pacquiao rematch or somebody big, Sean Porter rematch, Danny Garcia rematch, Errol Spence. I mean, there's so many options. Mikey Garcia would probably fight him because they're both big names. We just got to see what goes down in the second half of the year. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. 2019 year-end top 10s, the 147-pound welterweight divisions. We had numbers 4, 5, and 6 in this video. Keith One-Time Thurman, Sean Showtime Porter, and Danny Swift Garcia. Hope you enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.